What is up? Good morning and welcome to Monday's Hangxiety. This is Club Fantasy's almost weekly show. Sorry about last week, where we react to everything that happened on Sunday. And Josh is giving me weird looks right now, and it's completely throwing my intro off. So, Josh, what's going on?
Apparently I hit the Women of Fantasy Twitter instead of the Club Fantasy Twitch, and I'm like, wait, what? My bad.
Oops, can we add it in the middle of a broadcast? I don't know how that works. So. Well, now that the intro is completely bananas, just like every Monday should always be completely bananas. Just so you're aware, if you've never tuned into this show, we go over last week's action. We help you recover from the hangovers that you may or may not be suffering right now. But most importantly, we tell you when it is time to chill the fuck out about a player. I am your host, Ryan Weisse. I am the reason we were not on last week. I had a rough week. Josh obliged me. Josh Hudson with me as always. How are you today, my friend?
Good. Apparently you can edit in the middle of a stream.
I saw.
That works. This show's already off the rails and we're like 60 seconds in. This is fantastic.
Of all of our shows, this is the one I expected on completely. I may lose my voice halfway through the show, so it's going to be chaos completely. So I'm happy about it. So. How you feeling this morning, buddy?
Well, 12 hours of drinking, so, getting through it, but, it is what it is. There was a lot of good football yesterday, a lot of close games, which was a lot of fun and made the 1 o'clock games very, very fun to watch. So, a lot of good football, a lot of great performances, a few duds, and lots to talk about. So
plenty to talk about. So for those who don't know, I think I pointed this out on this show before, but Josh and I are essentially the exact same age, but our lives could not be more different. He had 12 hours of drinking yesterday. I'm not feeling well. I'm sitting on the couch drinking water all day. The first thing Josh says to me today is that the 1 hour of extra sleep did not help him at all. Meanwhile, I've never felt better on a Monday morning. So same age, completely different lifestyles, but that's why we get along so well. As Josh alluded to, there was some great action this week. I'm going to quickly recap it, and then we're going to dive in. So Eagles kept rolling on Thursday. More on that later, 29-17 over Houston. Patriots just beat down the Colts 26-3. Sam Ehlinger is bad. The Detroit Lions sneak by the Packers 15-9. Aaron Rodgers is just bad. Romeo Doubs was carted off in that game with an ankle injury, and Aaron Jones was seen after the game in a walking boot. X-rays came back negative today, and they think he is going to be good to go. The Chargers just barely beat Atlanta 20-17. The Jets stunned the Bills 20-17. The Vikings survived the Washington Commanders. Are these all 20-17, or did I mistype? Holy shit. I just saw it was 3 games.
Like I said, there were a lot of close games.
Yeah, and all 3 in a row with the exact same score. Bengals just beat up and destroyed the Carolina Panthers 42-21. Hello, Joe Mixon. And unfortunately, Baker Mayfield is back, so everyone's fantasy value in Carolina is over. The Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Las Vegas Raiders 27-20. And that was interesting because the Jags skipped their London bye, which is not something a lot of teams do. Evan Ingram did leave this game with a back injury. The Dolphins just barely get by Chicago on what was my favorite game of the week, 35-32 for the Dolphins. Seattle Seahawks just keep on winning. This time it was 31-21 over the Arizona Cardinals. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers sucked less than the Los Angeles Rams, 16-13. Bad QB play continues. And then the Chiefs just absolutely stole one from the Tennessee Titans last night. Tennessee did everything they could with absolutely no good quarterback play to hold on to this game. They were not able to. Patrick Mahomes all over the Tennessee Titans, but it was 2017. In overtime, the first segment of the show, as always, until the streak ends, up with the Birds. Josh Hudson, your team is undefeated.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, that game against the Texans was ugly. Like, it was not like typical Philly football that we've seen really this year. The defense, they played well enough to win, but really not great. Their secondary was fantastic in the red zone, though. And I said this actually heading into the game because there was a lot of talk like, oh, what do we do with Dameon Pierce? This is a bad matchup for him. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is a fantastic matchup for him. The Eagles are allowing close to 5 yards a carry, and we just lost our best run stuffer in Jordan Davis for, 4 to 6 weeks. They just put him on IR. Yep. So this set up for a great game for Pierce, and that's exactly what it was. 139 yards, set a career high in his brief career. Like, the Texans did everything possible to win this game down their top 2 starting wide receivers. Yeah. To me, it just felt like Philly, was just kind of like, all right, we're on a short week. We're playing a really crappy team. We'll do the bare minimum and squeak by. And that's essentially exactly what happened. But now they've got not 10 days, but 11 days because their next game is Monday night in week 10. So they'll have plenty of time to get right and get ready. Not even 100% sure who we play next week, but a win is a win. I'll take it. But, watching Buffalo lose this week, watching the Titans just stymie the Chiefs, and I know the Chiefs hung on to win, but I don't know how you can watch these teams and think that Philly right now is not the best team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because while maybe our schedule has been meh, we're winning the games that we should be winning, and other teams are not. So
well, your next 2 games, Josh, you were wondering who you play as the Washington Commanders on Monday night, and then followed up by the Indianapolis Colts. So congratulations on your next 2 wins.
Yeah, well, I mean, it should be. I mean, the Commanders, they hung with the Vikings yesterday.
Yep. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Vikings later. But
yeah, so and the Vikings are very much a hit or miss team. I get it. But again, they're another team. They're doing just enough to win.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Taylor Heineke's going to keep the Commanders competitive. So what Eagles defense is going to show up is kind of where I'm at. So
yeah, it's going to be real interesting. I think you guys just were victim of the short week. Dameon Pierce looks legit. Dameon Pierce and Kenneth Walker are just, not that Breece Hall didn't look good, but he did not look how Kenneth Walker and Dameon Pierce look when they play football. And Dameon Pierce is doing it on an absolutely atrocious football team. So kudos to him. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with Houston being down their 2 wide receivers. I think Philly unfortunately went into this game coasting, and it looked like it until the second half. Hurts finally turned it on, because I know some fantasy managers were nervous about their Jalen Hurts going into halftime of that game. So
rightfully so. I mean, like I said, he didn't look great.
No.
I will say, because of the bye weeks, I did have to I was forced to play Kenneth Gainwell in one league. Paid off okay with that second quarter touchdown.
I started him in Scott Fishbowl, and I had it in my notes for the Wednesday show, but I didn't get to participate. But yeah, not the Wednesday, maybe it was the Wednesday show, or it might have been the Monday show, but there was somewhere where you had put a note about not starting Kenneth Gainwell, and I'm like, well, shit, I'm starting Kenneth Gainwell. Or maybe it was just me watching you and Joe on the Wednesday show. But regardless, I started him, and like you said, it worked out a little bit after my Miles Sanders 2 touchdown prediction. So Kenneth Gainwell went ahead and ruined that for me. Yes. So the first other segment, other than just gloating over Philadelphia, we call it the blackout. Basically, you go to bed thinking one thing, and you wake up seeing something completely different. And Josh, you kind of owned this one for us this week. So go ahead and own that.
Yeah, so I brought this up on our show notes last week when Las Vegas shit the bed, and then they go into Jacksonville in a game they should win, and really did not look competitive at all. What the fuck is up in Las Vegas? Adams shit the bed last week, kind of had a feeling that he would come out firing this week. Exactly what happened. I think he had over 30 fantasy points. And he had over 20 in the first quarter. It was an absurd number. Absolutely went off. And the Raiders still could not figure out Jacksonville. Really? I understand there's a lot of talent on Jacksonville's offense. We've seen an up and down Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne is absolutely legit. That kid can play football.
Yes, he can.
But, there was no answer. Josh McDaniels, what the fuck, dude? What the fuck? Seriously. I'm lost. I have no idea what is going through this team right now. And and again, we all in the offseason were like, our AFC West is legit. They might have 4 teams make the playoffs. They're going to be lucky to have 1 make the playoffs.
I'll defend the Chargers later on in the show. Okay. But yes.
But that's kind of where I'm at. The Broncos fucking suck. This is not the Russell Wilson we thought we were getting. Derek Carr was an MVP candidate, but not anymore.
Certainly not.
You give him one of the best wide receivers in football, and he sucks. What? It's supposed to go the other way.
I think we really overestimated the Raiders defense in general. And Carr is not a guy who's going to be able to go out there and win games for you. And then for those who follow IDP, I think they could lose their best linebacker, Devon Diablo, for a period of time based on yesterday's injuries as well. So it's not getting any better there.
No,
So.
not at all. And on the subject of teams that really suck, yeah, I'm pretty sure the Colts are just throwing in the tag. That like they're throwing in the towel. It's over. The phrase that I put in my notes are they're hung for young.
I'm gonna be honest. As someone who doesn't follow college football, I was like, "What the fuck is he writing here?"
Bryce Young, the quarterback at Alabama.
Yeah,
I was trying to think of something funny for Stroud, but I didn't. Nothing popped at 11 o'clock last night when I was filling this in. So
fair enough. Yeah, what's funny is maybe I'm naive, which is not something I would often call myself. But when they announced Sam Ehlinger as the starter for the rest of the year, it never occurred to me that they were tanking. I was like, oh, okay,
like cool. He's not, dude, a 6th round quarterback. Once in 30 years, you get a Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Like straight up. It's not a commonality, especially in today's NFL. Like, you're lucky to get a 4th round quarterback that works, a la Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
If you're not spending a 1st round pick on a quarterback, more often than not, you're not finding a good one. It's just how the position is. Whoever thought that Sam Ehlinger would actually be good at football, please put the crack pipe down, because my God.
I won't say I thought he was going to be good. I didn't know that they were going to be this bad. And obviously they're missing Jonathan Taylor, which I was going to bring something up with this. And I don't even want to put these words out, but what incentive is there to bring Jonathan Taylor back this season?
There's none. There's absolutely none. You're getting him, you're putting him out there to get killed when he's already hurt. Yeah. Because his offensive line is trash. The quarterback play, you don't have to scheme against it, because Ehlinger's going to beat himself.
And then Deion Jackson got banged up yesterday as well. I think he came back into the game, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So.
Well, I mean, they're trying to give, featured role touches to a guy who's not a featured back. Like, that's really what it boils down to.
I mean, in all honesty, you brought in Zach Moss, who has a little bit of draft pedigree and is supposed to be a good player. Well, what I was going to say, though, is does it not make more sense to find out what you have in Zach Moss and just rest Jonathan Taylor the rest of this year and see what happens? Like, I don't see the incentive of bringing Jonathan Taylor back. And I traded Jonathan Taylor in my longstanding home league and have been heartbroken about it. But then I saw yesterday's game. I was like, okay, I feel far better about the decisions I've made at this point. Not that I got anything great back in the thing other than draft picks, but all in all, it's an interesting conundrum there with the Colts, because I guess they are just tanking at this point. And I mean, they've just been in this spiral at quarterback ever since the surprise Andrew Luck retirement. And you just would think that they would be able to get past it, but they certainly have not.
It's been miss after miss after miss. I mean,
Yeah.
Phillip Rivers worked for him, but again, it was 1 year. And then he said, all right, I'm out. I'm done. I can't do it anymore, which, hey, you know what? He was 40. I get it. But then, going into Wentz, and I still feel like they bailed on Wentz too soon, because it's not even like Wentz had a bad year, 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Like, I get it, losing to Jacksonville, it sucks. And the quarterback's going to get the blame, but I think we're seeing right now that Frank Reich might be the problem. And it wasn't really Wentz.
And I said that back in week 1 or week 2, Josh. I don't know if I said it on air or if I texted you, but I said, does Frank Reich make it through this season? Like, there's no reason to
I don't think he's going to.
So,
and really, you've seen a downturn in that offense since Sirianni went to Philly.
Yep.
There's zero creativity. They have no identity. And Frank Reich looks like, he was supposed to be this, guru of offense. Apparently the keys to that went with Sirianni. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that was the year they had Phillip Rivers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just been all downhill from that point forward. Yeah, I don't understand the Colts, because they were supposed to have this great offensive line. They clearly have one of the best young running backs. They were putting together a defense, but all in all, they're a train wreck. And then Josh, you have a decree, which is the first time on this show. And
I know you're going to bring this up too, but we were wrong about Justin Fields.
Yeah,
we were wrong about Justin Fields. A lot of my hesitation, and Ryan, I know you kind of echoed this too, heading into the season, was that, for as athletic as Justin Fields is, he was always very hesitant to use his legs.
Yeah.
Like he did not want to run the football. And, I get it. He's got a good arm. He can make the progressions and do the things that he needs to do to win games. But he wasn't winning games with his arms last year. And really, even the first half of the season was not winning games with his arm. And so now it's become, hey, this offensive line sucks. My receivers suck. I've got to step up and I've got to make plays. Set the record for rushing yards by a quarterback yesterday.
Yep.
And when you see guys like Lamar Jackson and Michael Vick, Jalen Hurts, guys that we know can run the football, Justin Fields coming in and doing that, it's really fucking impressive. I still think he has a lot of work to do. Yeah, he really is. He's fun to watch. And I'm honestly, I'm rooting for the kid. I still think he has some things to work out throwing the football because the dude takes an hour and a half to get rid of the football. And it was really evident in the beginning part of that game when they set up a screen pass for Claypool, takes the football and moves like a damn tortoise to go this way to throw it. And that allowed the defense to just smother Claypool, and it ultimately ended up an incomplete pass when really it should have been a pick six.
Yep.
And it's little things like that where it's like, I get you're still getting the ball out before the defense gets to you, which, hey, is great, but you can do it quicker. You should be doing it quicker, and he's not. And that's where I'm running into issues with him because he was supposed to be much more polished as a passer than a runner. It's great for fantasy because, again, did you know this? He leads all quarterbacks in rushing yards this year.
I didn't know. Now, I think he took that after yesterday's game, though, right? Because I knew he was
and Lamar still has tonight to play as well. So there's a chance that doesn't live up through the weekend. But as of this moment that we're talking right now, Justin Fields has over 600 rushing yards and nobody else does.
Yeah, and you've kind of said it perfectly in that where you said he was supposed to be more polished as a passer. We're starting to see some really nice passes from Justin Fields. That touchdown to Darnell Mooney, that was a beautiful ball that he threw. And even the first touchdown, he threw Cole Kmet open on that first touchdown. So there's a lot that he's doing right, but it's the timing. His release makes timing plays almost non-existent.
It does.
Exactly. And when you're coming from a system where you've played with Aaron Rodgers, speaking of Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator, that's got to be a major change because Aaron Rodgers lives and dies on timing.
Yep.
So
that's what I'm saying. Like there's still a lot for Fields to learn, and he'll get there. Like, this is his second year playing. I'm not expecting him to be an all-pro quarterback right away. I'm not. And I don't think anybody is or should be anyway.
Yeah.
The idea is show progress. And when you look at who he was and how he was playing in the first game this season to where he's at right now, there is a lot of progress that Bears fans should be immensely appreciative of and looking forward to.
100%. And I like it. And we've talked about this.
And he's also been the QB1 over the last 5 weeks.
And the schedule continues
to
stay open.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you mentioned it when you had him as the stream of the week. He's not going to be available on waivers after this week.
Nope. Yeah,
or at the very least, he shouldn't be. Like I grabbed him in one of my leagues before the Dallas game because I saw the start of this run between, Miami and the next.
Well, and Josh, you put that out there, and that was the whole thing that got everything started for me. Was you talked about getting him before that because everyone assumed he was going to do poorly against Dallas, but you saw the rushing game coming, so you planted that thought in my head, and it's worked out. And if you look at
and he's got the Lions and the Falcons the next 2 weeks.
I was just going to say, if you look at their schedule, and then I don't know if you have their whole schedule, Josh. If I remember correctly,
they've got the Lions, the Falcons the next 2 weeks. Then they've got the Jets, the Packers, the Eagles, the Bills, and then the Lions again in championship week.
And that is the most important part, is the Lions in championship week. So even if he's likely to struggle against the Eagles, which is fine, he may struggle.
Honestly, I don't think he will.
Well,
he's going to run all over us.
I was just going to say, maybe in interception heavy leagues, but you're absolutely right where he's going to be able to run against all of these teams, probably the Jets included. I'm not worried about any of these games. They're all teams that give up a lot of rushing yards. And then the Lions in championship week, If you are holding Fields even as a backup right now, you may want to continue to hold him and waste that roster spot. And let's get into the hangover because I'm going to jump into mine first, Josh, because there are 3 quarterbacks right now who Justin Fields should absolutely be playing over. And I'm talking about Tom Brady, Matt Stafford, and Aaron Rodgers. Last year, these guys were the QB2, QB5, and QB6, respectively. They combined for 126 touchdowns and 33 interceptions. This season, they are the QB11, QB25, and QB13, respectively. They're pacing for 68 touchdowns against 35 interceptions. So they're still turning the ball over at the exact same clip.
And I'm pretty sure they have like -6 combined rushing yards.
Yeah, and they're going to get you half the touchdowns they got last year. Aaron Rodgers threw 1 fewer interception yesterday than he threw in all of 2021. But the part that bothers me about this, and this is the part where I want fantasy managers to get away from this name recognition, hope of future bullshit. Tom Brady is rostered in 89% of fantasy leagues. Matt Stafford is still in 58%, and Aaron Rodgers in 86%. You are asking to lose if you continually throwing these guys out here. Play the streaming game, but way more importantly, go get Justin Fields if he happened to have survived the Dallas game on waivers. Blow whatever fab you have. Justin Fields, if these guys are one of your 3 quarterbacks, is the difference between you making the playoffs and having a shot at the championship and you watching the playoffs right now. You got to get these guys off of your roster. It's completely worthless. So.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen people, holding on to Brady. I get like he's still a top 12 quarterback, but like holding on to Matthew Stafford right now is pointless.
And Aaron Rodgers.
Like absolutely,
there's no weapons.
Like, are you saying that you want a piece of Cooper Kupp? Like I mean, I get it, fine.
But we've seen Cooper Kupp succeed. We've seen Cooper Kupp succeed for 8 games without Matthew Stafford. That
exactly
is over.
So that piece is over. Yeah, it's crumbled at this point. So,
and it's a nice thing to take into next year's fantasy analysis is that we are overvaluing the quarterback of good receivers, where it should be the other way around, where we're valuing mediocre receivers of good quarterbacks, a la Patrick Mahomes, because we all wanted to destroy him this year, but he leads the NFL in touchdown passes with a bunch of Jags playing wide receiver. So
absolutely.
All right, go ahead and get into your hangovers, Josh.
Don't get those guys. Well, I'll start with the Packers since you kind of brought up Aaron Rodgers. My God, they look awful, like so bad. And we've talked on this show, on other shows across this entire network about how terrible the Lions defense is.
Yep, worst in the league.
And the Packers scored a whopping 9 points on them.
9 fantasy points.
Not like awful, just terrible. Like I know a couple of those picks from Rodgers, they were tip passes, etc., whatever. The Lions, as bad as they are, they're playing with heart.
100%.
There is no sense of urgency with the Packers. And the sad thing is, it's like, are you really going to like suck for a draft pick to try to get a better quarterback when you spent a first round pick on a quarterback 3 years ago that you're actively not playing?
At this point, how do you not just throw Jordan Love out there the rest of the season? Like, it makes no sense.
Rodgers right now is the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
Yep.
That's why.
Well, yeah,
that's literally why. Like, you're not going to bench him because all it's going to do is, in the event you could try to work out a trade, maybe with San Francisco, let him go back home, right out in the sunset there. I don't even know if they're going to have any cap space after just taking on McCaffrey anyway. Yeah. But, the point being is that you've got to pass the torch at some point. Rodgers and LaFleur are like bulls just butting heads because LaFleur wants to run the football. Rodgers says, you know what? The only way we're going to start winning is if you let me throw the fucking football. Philosophically, these two make zero sense, and I have no idea why Green Bay wanted Aaron Rodgers back if that was the case.
Wayne agrees with you.
It does not make sense.
I don't know if you saw the tweet yesterday. Little Wayne said they should have got rid of 12 before the season started. So
I did see
Little Wayne turning on you now.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the biggest, most well-known Packer fan that probably exists. And when he's telling you, "Yo, we should have moved on," maybe Gooch should have taken note. But I'm so confused by this team. And then they lost Rashawn Gary. They're one of their stud defensive ends to a torn ACL. He's done for the year. You mentioned earlier, Aaron Jones banged up. Like, I get that they want to run the football inside the 5 with A.J. Dillon because the man's a Mack truck. But Aaron Jones is one of the best red zone weapons in the NFL. If you're trying to score, I don't know, maybe give that guy the fucking football.
At one point, he was the most efficient running back in NFL history for a period of time. So, like, maybe give him the ball.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're trying to make A.J. Dillon a thing, and he's flashed, and I get it. There's an advantage when you have a guy that's that fucking big. But your offensive line is not creating any holes. And he's not shifty enough to create them for himself. It's not working. Abandon fucking ship. It's not working. Give the football to Aaron Jones.
Inside the 10, they just can't run the ball at all. I have the statistics up right now. They have 7 carries for 9 yards inside the 10 with 1 A.J. Dillon touchdown. However, both of Aaron Jones' receiving touchdowns have come, or 2 of Aaron Jones' receiving touchdowns have come from inside the 10. So maybe just stop running the ball inside the fucking 10-yard line because you can't do it anyway. So.
Yeah, and speaking of running the football, you spend a first-round draft pick on a running back, and you can't run the football. What are the Chiefs doing? You take away everything that Patrick Mahomes did yesterday. And I get that Tennessee has a good run defense. I got a lot of questions like, oh, would you ride with, maybe Pacheco or CEH over Deion Jackson, stuff like this. And I'm like, you don't want any piece of that Chiefs running game. Nope. None whatsoever. Without Mahomes, they had 13 rush attempts for 14 fucking yards. 14 yards. 14 yards. Are you serious? Like, you are not going to win games in January and or February without a running game. You can't do it. I'm sorry.
And then the fact that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still taking a backseat to, 32-year-old Jerick McKinnon at this point in the passing game. Like, you got to stop. Like, and I'm not saying I don't, the Chiefs know what they're doing. I'll never question Andy Reid. You got to stop believing in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And he did not make my drop list this week, but damn, was he close. Like, I was typing it and decided against it.
I mean, if you're holding on to CEH, it's literally because you see that he scored touchdowns early in the year.
Yep, and you're hoping that comes back.
Yeah, and I think there's another bye week where 6 teams are on a bye. That's probably why you're still holding on to CEH at this point.
Yeah,
and a desperation dart throw, and when you need a bye week fill in, because there's not a single Chiefs running back that I feel really should be rostered in fantasy right now. Because
certainly not Pacheco.
You're not starting him.
Yeah,
like you're not starting any of them, and all this, and Ronald Jones isn't getting any run.
No. Has he been active yet?
I don't
Maybe once.
Has.
Yeah, like I said, it's been a rough season. Let's move on.
It's for me, it just boils down to, as great as Patrick Mahomes is, you can only play hero ball for so long before it catches up to you. And
we've seen it in games, and you're absolutely
We've seen it
right.
for years with Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
Like, for as great as he is as a quarterback, and for as much talent as he had with Devontae Adams throwing the football to, he can only do so much by himself.
Well, and there was a period last year, I want to say like a 3 to 4 game period. I just remember Joe Zolo, our co-host on our Wednesday show, where he was just getting furious with Mahomes. And I feel like it was a month last year where he was just hero balling it every single week. And we saw these really bad interceptions and everything out of Mahomes. And so far we've avoided that this year. But as the weather starts to turn, you start to worry that could happen again. Because if you can't run the ball when the weather turns in Kansas City, I feel like that's an issue. So,
1000%.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the good stuff, Josh. Our shot of espresso, just the quality performances yesterday that really got us, got the juices flowing. Talk about it.
So, for as much as we've been bitching about how few pass attempts the Falcons have, hey, Kyle Pitts and Drake London had 7 targets apiece, baby.
Yeah.
They only threw the football 23 times.
Yeah,
they're still not that's almost a 30% target share. They only combined for 5 catches and like 20 yards. But there's hope at the end of the tunnel.
The yardage is, and I think I brought this up on last week's show, or maybe it was our Wednesday show.
50 yards combined.
The yardage specifically for Kyle Pitts is the most puzzling thing to me. And you kind of brought up that they're not throwing him open. They're not calling the right plays, but his yardage.
Mariota overthrew him on one.
which is a shock to begin with.
Yeah, right. Well, here's the fun thing. Like for all the stat nerds and analytic nerds out there, Kyle Pitts had 27 receiving yards yesterday.
Yeah.
202 air yards.
See,
what could have been with those 7 targets?
Yeah, because right now he's averaging 35 yards a game, basically. And that is just very different. Like, we were so hyped up on his yardage more than anything after his rookie year, because he was one of the very few 1,000-yard rookie tight ends.
It's only one of 2.
You saw. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, one of 2. And the other one was back in the 60s, Mike Ditka.
My goodness, I didn't even remember that. So, yeah, you really were expected. And so he's going from 15 yards a catch down to 12 yards a catch, but then the catch numbers and the targets are down. It's just been puzzling. But what I would say is, because I know there's a lot of people who catch shit for defending Pitts these days, I feel like the hope is there that he is going to be a good player still. But my goodness, 2022 ain't it? And no. I love that this is our good feeling segment.
I wanted to give a little hope. Like, it's
100%.
just one of those things where, yes, the overall numbers sucked. I mean, Drake London only had 5.3 fantasy points in PPR, Pitts 4.7. But again, it's the target share. Target share, when you're not throwing the football much, you need as much of it as humanly possible.
Yeah.
The problem is so many of these targets right now are not catchable.
Nope.
And that's where the issue lies in London and Pitts' production, because Mariota is on this team right now to guide this offense by handing the football off.
Yeah.
Like, they ran the football 35 times yesterday to 23 pass attempts.
And
that is the recipe for the Falcons in 2022.
And with a chance to win their division, there's not a lot of incentive to
they almost won this game.
Exactly.
And the Chargers threw the football 43 times.
Yeah, the Chargers didn't.
You control the clock. You have a chance to win every single game.
Exactly.
I mean, 35 rush attempts for 201 yards. It's working.
I was going to say, I don't know that I wanted to use the term "it's working." I've been fighting myself with that this entire thing. But another thing is, Mariota's looking pretty good running the football himself on top of everything else. So, I mean, you take it. I got it. You just missed us just destroying Frank Reich Scamper. So you're just a few minutes there, but we agree wholeheartedly. We're good morning to everyone except Frank Reich. So that wasn't a good one. But Josh, you're telling me there might be hope in the tight end wasteland?
Yeah, and a rookie tight end, no less. Cade Otton. His last 3 games played, he's averaging over 10 fantasy points a game. I mean, isn't that kind of what you want from a tight end at this point? Like,
far more than kind of.
I know. There's no Gronk there in Tampa to bail Brady out, but maybe there is with this Cade Otton kid.
And they liked him a lot. There were a lot of very positive reports about him during training camp. So.
Yeah, and, grab them off of waivers, plug them in. You got a chance. That's all I'm saying.
And they certainly can't run the football right now, Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
So, no, I like that. And you inspired me. He's going to come up later in the show. So I just wanted to hit on a couple more things with Justin Fields. Like we brought up, the schedule is fantastic. The few things I wanted to point out, Josh, you hit on, like, last year he seemed afraid to run the ball. So last year he was only running the ball 6 times per game and only hit 420 yards for the entire 12 games that he played. This year, he's on pace for 1,100 rushing yards. That's 110 base fantasy points if he doesn't score a touchdown. And we saw his speed. He is going to score touchdowns. And then you kind of already hit on my favorite point is anytime someone breaks a record in a league where we've seen Michael Vick and Donovan McNabb and all these, like, great rushing quarterbacks, when someone breaks the QB rushing record, that should open your eyes to something, because that's big. Cam Newton is a name I didn't want to forget. Like, we've seen great rushing quarterbacks, and he just broke their record. I look at Justin Fields. He's different, like Lamar was different. And I'm not saying he's going to have this amazing growth that Lamar had like next year for Fields, but it's working. And if Chicago's ready to lean into it the way Baltimore was ready to lean into it, I think this could work out well for them. Next step, and I'm going to be very interested to see what they do this offseason, because it's what Baltimore did. So Baltimore moved on from Flacco and went and got Tyler Huntley, someone who could be a Lamar Jackson light. Is Chicago going to do the same thing this offseason? Because you can't take a step from, we're going to change the offense to suit Justin Fields. Oh, and now Nick Foles is their fucking quarterback. Like, that's not going to work for anybody. So I'm going to be real interested to see who Chicago goes and gets their backup quarterback. It's going to tell me a lot about if the Bears believe in Justin Fields as their starter.
Breaking news, Ryan.
What's that?
Frank Reich out.
We did it. I would have fired him after yesterday as well. But for anyone who's just tuning into the show, me and Josh predicted this earlier in the season and at the beginning of this show without knowing that he was getting fired today. So now I kind of take back my double finger salute I gave him because I don't need to make it worse that he got fired today. But you deserved it, buddy. I know you watched the show.
Absolute terrible display. But the sad thing is, though, is right now Chris Ballard should be on the hot seat too. Like, I don't really think that he
very questionable decisions.
He should not be given a leash to hire the next head coach, in my opinion.
So here's my question:
as much as he's burned through draft picks on quarterbacks that suck,
whose decision was it to shut down Matt Ryan for the rest of the year? And do they go back on that decision now for the rest of the season? What do you think?
I honestly have no idea. We've seen Jim Irsay kind of take the reins and be like, hey, suck for luck and some of those types of things. So it would not surprise me one bit if that came from Irsay. Yeah. And that's why they were rolling with Ellinger. And at this point it was just, we got to make a change. Cause there was a lot of talk that the Colts have just lost the locker room as a whole. And obviously that falls on the head coach. So,
yeah, it's all bad. And I'm, of course, not going to take any opportunity not to talk about the great Cordero Patterson, who was back yesterday, goes for 2 rushing touchdowns. He looks like an NFL running back. He's not quite that build, but no more of this / wide receiver shit. They're not even throwing him the ball anymore, and hopefully they do eventually. But 5.1 yards per carry, 5 rushing touchdowns in 5 games this season. He's running through tackles. He's not afraid of contact. I loved every bit of what I saw, but way more importantly, at 15 fantasy points per game, that makes him a top 15 running back when he's only seen 8 targets in those 5 games and only caught 5 balls. If they decide to maybe start dumping the ball off to Cordero Patterson, he's going to win people leagues again this year like he did last year. And I'm just happy with what I'm seeing there in this weird version of this Falcons offense.
And Tyler Algier looked really good yesterday too.
And that's going to come up later because I'm full disclosure, Caleb Huntley is one of my cut list. Algier and Patterson, they could play very good football together. And I'm very interested to see how that looks because he broke that enormous run Algier did. And then still looked good on other carries, and they kind of made Caleb.
Well, and then he had the one catch for 24 yards.
Exactly.
Like, he's got some juice. So, if they want to use I feel like they could really use these two very interchangeably. Like Huntley's a big guy. Like he can bruise in the middle too, just like Patterson can. But both of them are pretty effective as receivers out of the backfield.
Yeah, I'm just happy to see Cordero Patterson continue to play well. It's a guy I've defended for 3 seasons now, and I'm happy to see it shake out the way it's shaking out this season because I held him on IR in every league I had him in, and I was nervous. And the 2 rushing touchdowns, I started him in half my leagues. I didn't start him in the other half. The 2 rushing touchdowns made me feel good. I know I'm not getting that every week. I'm just hoping to get him more involved in the passing game. Like, that's the big thing. Oh, my goodness, Oscar, where have you been? We've just waxed poetically about Justin Fields for about a half an hour now. We love him. We love his schedule for the rest of the season. We love his rushing ability. We're not going to expect huge steps in the passing game this year, but it does not matter because of what he's going to be able to do with the running game. So go get him, especially if you have Tom Brady, Matt Stafford, or Aaron Rodgers as your current fantasy quarterback. But we're all in on Justin Fields on this show, at least for the rest of the 2022 season based on his schedule. And then let's see here. Where are we? We're on Morning Mimosas, Josh. So go ahead and tell me. I'm going to give you full disclosure, Josh. I mixed up Morning Mimosas and the blackout one. And so my answers don't make a ton of sense for this, but I'll make them make sense for this.
It's all good.
I'm going to let you get started.
I'm going to start with Tua Tagovailoa before we get into Elixir's comment here. Because
I was going to say, I was going to let you talk about Mixon, and then we're going to jump into the comments.
So with Tua, look, I need Joe to play this back and stop slandering Tua.
I was going to say,
because you can sit here and tell me all you want that he underthrows deep balls. Right now, I don't care. And Joe, you're probably young enough to not remember this. Tom Brady couldn't throw deep early in his career either.
I was going to say, ballsy of you to go at Joe on the show where he's not with us.
Oh, I'll go at him on Wednesday.
Well,
I don't give a shit.
I'm guessing it's just so you can actually get a word in, because we both know that he's not going to let you get a word in.
No, of course not. Dude, 300. He averaged over 10 yards per pass attempt yesterday. Like, he is absolutely slinging it. And what's making this better for Tua is because he has the weapons that can bail him out. Because that's what you want to surround your young quarterback with. Weapons that help you, not hurt you. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mostert, getting Jeff Wilson, Gesicki, these guys are making it easy for Tua. And he's one of the most accurate passers in the league.
Yeah.
He was one of the most accurate coming out of college. This is all he has to do is get these guys the football. And he's doing it. So, yes, he is good at football. Stop slandering him, Joe. Stop it.
I'm just looking at the top 12 quarterbacks right now. Only 2 of them have a higher passing completion rate. That's Joe Burrow and Geno Smith.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So.
Like, he's good. When he stays upright, he can get rid of the ball quickly. He's the anti-Justin Fields in that instance.
Yeah.
And he gets it to the guys that are making plays. Tyreek Hill has over 1,100 receiving yards. We have played 9 games. That is bonkers.
Yeah.
Absolutely bonkers. Tua is undefeated in games that he has started and finished this year.
And I don't know if you caught the interview with Tyreek at the end of the game where they told him that he is just broke Calvin Johnson's record for fastest to 1,000 yards or whatever.
I thought it was Isaac Bruce.
Okay, I could have sworn they said it was Calvin Johnson. But regardless, Tyreek Hill was taken aback to learn that he did that. And I feel like there's this image of Tyreek Hill based on very bad things that he's done in the past and bad media perception. But you forget that he is still a guy who treasures the game and is good at his craft. And it's a very different situation of this Tyreek Hill kind of versus he's almost less cocky than what we saw him in Kansas City. And it almost makes him more likable at this point. And I understand there are people who will never like him.
Captain. So. He's a team captain in Miami. I don't think he ever was in KC.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So
before you get into Joe Mixon, taking on that responsibility.
I say we're going to answer these questions. I do want to just get the comments up, and then I'm going to let you talk about Mixon. So good friend of the show, Elixir's a little bitter with the show right now as he was told that Kamara and Etienne have more upside than Joe Mixon, and we talked him into benching Joe Mixon in the greatest game of Joe Mixon's career and one of the greatest games in NFL career. So Elixirs, you have every right to bust our balls, and we have every right to apologize to you. However, I will point out Alvin Kamara hasn't played yet. Who knows? Maybe he goes off tonight. This looks like mildly decent advice. But this perfect timing. We have a trade question, and I'm going to let you talk about Mixon first, Josh, and then we can kind of talk about this trade. But would you trade away Saquon and Jerry Jeudy for Joe Mixon and D-Hop? So I understand what Mixon did yesterday, but I think we would still call it a downgrade at running back, but certainly an upgrade at wide receiver. So Josh, talk about Joe Mixon, and then we can answer this trade question.
All right. So here's my thing with Mixon. Look, 5 touchdowns in one day. It's absolutely fantastic. One of them receiving, absolutely amazing. Probably single-handedly winning me my matchup in Scott Fishbowl this week. Before this game, he was averaging 3.3 yards per carry. Yeah, not very efficient at all. We saw last year, he was living and dying by touchdowns. Obviously, scoring 5 in a day, he's going to live by touchdowns, right? But he's also seeing a lot more pass attempts this year than he has in years past, which is great for his fantasy production, even with the low efficiency when running the football. We know how high-powered this offense is. This was a matchup tailor-made not just for him, but also for the passing game. And for the love of God, Mixon, why could you not spare a touchdown for T. Higgins? That's all I'm going to say. But, what the fuck, bro? But anyway, for something like this, I feel like you're buying high on Mixon at this point because of this game. But the upgrade from Judy to D-Hop is just massive.
And then I'm going to throw his roster up because I think that makes this decision even a little bit easier. So,
oh yeah, I think you're doing this trade just for the simple fact that, you know, Amon-Ra hasn't been very consistent because of injuries. Judy started to pick up steam a little bit here. Palmer's useless once Allen and or Williams come back, if Allen ever comes back. Lazard's really the only piece in Green Bay right now you can trust, and even he has injury issues. My big issue here would be, you know, because you're putting D-Hop on this team and you have Hollywood Brown, where does that go? Because they're, you know, when Hollywood does come back, I feel like they're going to kind of eat away at each other. Your saving grace right now, obviously, is Eckler and Kelsey, but yeah, I think you do this trade. I think Mixon and D-Hop they're gonna upgrade where you need upgrades.
It's the wide receiver for me is why I also think you do this trade, because you have an RB1 in Eckler. Mixon is at worst an RB2, and then you have a great backup in Foreman and Patterson for the rest of the season, so you're not hurting yourself there. But my goodness, the peace of mind you'll have being able to start Amon-Ra and the best wide receiver from Arizona each week versus choosing between Jerry Jeudy, Allen Lazard, Josh Palmer, as you pointed out, is only relevant for the next 3 weeks. My only monkey wrench I'll throw into this, but it's not that bad because of Eckler and Patterson, is Saquon. You've just eaten Saquon's bye week, and now you're going to have to eat Joe Mixon's bye week in next week. So it kind of puts you at an odds there. So if you're
but with as well as Patterson's been playing and you know, Foreman's played well too. I mean, yeah, it was a dud last week, but let's be honest, that was all game script. I mean, it's unfortunate, it sucks, but it is what it is. So that Foreman then becomes a guy you don't have to rely on, and more so a bye week plug-in at that point. And that's really, to me, what's going to make that team better, is that you don't have to feel forced to start Foreman every week.
Yeah, I think it's a trade you make. You've already suffered through Saquon's bye week. What's one more week, right?
Exactly. So, but to go back to Mixon, elixirs, I am sorry. I'm fairly certain we mentioned this on Wednesday when you brought this up to Joe and I. All three of these guys have great matchups. And I think this is your lone PPR league. I did mention that Mixon's been catching a lot more passes, but he's still not on that ETN or Kamara level. The big blow up week in touchdowns. Look, it is what it is. You know, sometimes it happens. It happened for Kamara last week. You know, sorry, dude. Answer your DMs, because, you know, hopefully I got something coming your way.
We're trying to make it better. So I'm an idiot and a week off apparently. So this was supposed to be like, we feel good things coming, and I kind of do for these guys. So my first one is McCole Hardman. I thought McCole Hardman was dead with Kadarius Toney. Josh was busting my balls as the only McCole Hardman supporter in the entire world. But he's looking better every single game. He's electric with the ball in his hands. 9 targets, 6 catches for 79 yards and a touchdown last week. He's still the cheapest way you're going to get a piece of Patrick Mahomes. 5 touchdowns in the last 3 games. I don't think McCole Hardman is going anywhere. And that's just me defending my McCole Hardman like I always do. The Vikings, Josh, you kind of hit on this earlier in the show. And I noticed this yesterday when I was watching the end of their game. I forgot they were 6-1, now 7-1. And when I think of the best teams in football right now, I think of the Eagles. I think of a very large gap. And then I think of the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, maybe the Dallas Cowboys. I never think of the Vikings, and I don't know what it is, but their division is so bad, and this is how I'm going to turn this into making sense for this segment. Their division is so bad, they're likely to keep this trend alive. We already know they have one of the best, pass catchers in football. Kirk Cousins is kind of hit or miss. Dalvin Cook hasn't looked great this season, but he could turn it on at any point. And they're winning with their guys not looking great. And then you add Hawkinson, who I didn't think was going to fit, but my goodness, did he make that?
Yeah, they got him involved very early.
Yeah, and so there's a legitimate chance the Vikings and Eagles are just heads and tails above the rest of the NFC and are just laughing all the way to the NFC Championship. And it's interesting to see because they're flying under the radar, and I don't know if they're flying under the radar because their division is so bad or if they're flying under the radar because nobody is just paying enough attention to them. Like,
well, I think it's just because Kirk Cousins has let us down so many times before. It's really just like, all right, we're just counting down the minutes until
playoff games are primetime games.
So. Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, primetime Cousins he'll rear his ugly head here eventually. So,
all right, let's knock out some questions before we move on to the next segment. So we have another new listener in here with us. Cedric, how are you doing? Is it worth trading Ramondre Stevenson for Dallas Goedert if he already has Darren Waller?
I brought this up. I think it was on Saturday. I think Waller is borderline droppable.
I don't disagree, but I am not trading Ramondre Stevenson for a tight end. I will stream all season. I would need to know the rest of your roster, and you would have to be stacked at running back. Ramondre Stevenson, especially in any version of PPR, is an every week start at running back.
Even in standard.
I mean, yeah, that's true as well. Sometimes that gap is taken way too overboard because they get more yards. I've proven this before, Josh. They get more yards on catches than they do on carries. And so Ramondre Stevenson is an every week starter. I understand. And Goddard's coming off the best week of his life. You may be paying way too much for Dallas Goedert right now.
I agree. I mean, there's Kelsey, there's Andrews, then there's Goddard, and then there's everybody else. In my opinion, like that's kind of the tight end hierarchy for me this year. Goddard's going to have his down games because, again, he's on an offense with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts. Last week, Thursday, that was his week. And that's fantastic. He's going to win you some weeks. He's going to probably remain the tight end 3 through the rest of the season. Like you said, that was his best game. I don't think you're going to see another game like that, but he adds a level of consistency to the tight end position that is enviable amongst fantasy managers.
100%.
The downside is you're giving up an arguably a top 7 running back to get that. And I would much rather have the top 7 running back in this instance. Now, if you were trading Stevenson to get Goddard and say
a running back.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a running back right now that would Cordero Patterson.
Yeah.
Make that trade. Then you make that trade. Yeah.
Yeah, because someone else is backing it up and you're improving another position. So
correct. Yeah.
And you know another guy who's kind of been floated around in these kind of trades, Josh? Miles Sanders might be a guy that's...
I was going to say him too. That was literally the first one that came to my head, and I was like, yeah, but I don't know if I'd... Like, as a guy that in our Club Fantasy Dynasty League, I have Hurts, A.J. Brown, Goddard. It can be a headache sometimes having that many players from the same team on your roster.
Yeah.
So, in redraft, I try to mix it up a little bit more and not try to double dip too much in positions, but... if I'm going to stack, I tend to do more of like the quarterback with the tight end, the quarterback, the wide receiver versus, a running back, wide receiver, running back, tight end kind of thing.
If you believe in fantasy karma, Oscar has to actually play the guy he's making that trade to. So, Saquon Barkley is going to go off for about 400 yards and 5 touchdowns this week.
Honestly, I worry less about that. To me, it's not about how my opponent's going to do that week because I'm playing them. It's how is this going to help me the rest of the season?
Yep.
Sure, you want to win the week. I get it. But don't worry about that. If it improves your team, not just for the long haul, but that week, you make that trade. It's okay.
Oscar pointing out Kelsey had 17 targets, which is nuts. And what's really nuts
they threw the ball, 67 times, I think?
Yep, I was just going to say, and what's really nuts is it was a really boring game up until halftime, and then Patrick Mahomes just slung the ball everywhere.
68 times.
Yeah. We're going to blow through some segments here, mainly because I have to cut the show off at noon. My son's an early dismissal today, and we have a few more things to get through. If we don't get to your questions, we do a live show every Wednesday, and far more importantly, every Saturday we do a show strictly focused on start sits, your questions, no show sheet, nothing we need to get through. So if you need to tune in Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern and Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, all we do is answer your questions on those shows. This one, we try to have a little bit more structure, but we'll try to get to your questions if we can. Josh, let's just quickly blow through our buy low, sell highs. So we call it cream or sugar. Cream rises to the top, sugar falls to the bottom. Josh, who you got?
So I'm going to start with the sugar, and kind of leaning towards selling Raheem Mostert. You look at how effective he was. You look at how effective he was from weeks 4 through 8. Just essentially usurping that role from Chase Edmonds, making Edmonds available in the trade to acquire Bradley Chubb. Then the Dolphins go out and trade for Jeff Wilson, who already knows this offense as well. And you saw how much Wilson got involved. He actually out-touched Raheem Mostert this past week. And I want to give credit to a friend of the show, Marvin Eloquin from the Ballers and Yahoo Fantasy. He tweeted this morning. Opportunity share between Mostert and Wilson this past week. Mostert 21.2%, Wilson 23.1%. Mostert was averaging a 30% opportunity share from weeks 4 through 8.
And dipped 7% with 1 week of Jeff Wilson.
Correct. So if you can still sell Mostert for a decent price, because again, he did score a touchdown last week. So, the numbers still look there. I would move on from Mostert if I could. And I don't think that's a far cry to say. I mean, he's still an RB2. But now he's fringing on that RB2, like closer towards a flex play. So if you hung on to Jeff Wilson in the wake of the CMC trade, kudos, because I definitely did, and I feel good about it. But this one, my cream for this week is
Club Fantasy sacrilege right here.
And I know I'm going to get shit if Joe rewatches the show on Wednesday. I don't hate the idea of buying Cole Kmet.
You may not have to buy him. He's still available in 75%.
Yeah, he might actually be available on waivers. Look, 3 touchdowns the last 2 weeks. We've talked ad nauseum about Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Last week week 8, excuse me, very low efficiency. I think it was like 2 catches, 9 yards or something, and a touchdown or some dumb shit like that. But this week, 5 catches, 41 yards. I mean, and Fields only threw for 123 yards.
Yeah.
But if they're looking for Kmet in the end zone, yes, Marvin. Yeah, I'm gross by this right now. This is what you want a tight end to do. You want him to score touchdowns.
Yeah.
And right now, Kmet's doing it. And when you look at the Bears' remaining schedule against tight ends, there's really only 2 tough matchups, the Packers and the Bills. Everybody else is top half of the league in favorable matchups, 3 of which I believe are in the top 10. So there's a chance that we can get this level of Cole Kmet going forward, and he might actually end up a top 12 tight end by year's end.
And Josh, this brings up a really good point, because I was asked this week, I was figuring out how to get this into the show, and this worked out perfectly. I was asked this weekend twice by different people if I'm upset when Cole Kmet does well, based on, our show's vendetta against Cole Kmet. And I love when any player does well. I root for fantasy teams. I have Cole Kmet on 0 fantasy teams. However, I like when they do well. My point to open this season was that he is not the weekly play, the weekly top 10 option that people were pretending he was going to be. The passing volume was never going to be there, Josh, like we talked about. But he beats bad matchups. Miami and Dallas can get beat by the tight end, and he's shown that in the last 2 weeks. However, he scored a touchdown and wasn't even top 12 against the Dallas Cowboys. We pointed that out on the Wednesday show. And so there's going to be hit and miss, but you have to play the matchups when you're playing with bad tight ends, and you've hit that nail perfectly. He's going to have bad games against good defenses, but he's going to have good games against bad defenses, and there are more bad defenses left on the schedule against the tight end for Cole Kmet. This could be the time, and as Justin Fields improves, we're likely to see Cole Kmet improve. I don't think the volume's ever going to be there where you're going to feel great about starting him, but right now, take advantage.
Cole Kmet is currently tight end 20 on the season. He's averaging 6.4 PPR points per game. So hashtag not great. Of the top 20 options at the tight end position, Cole Kmet is tied for the second fewest targets. And this is what we were harping on. Cole Kmet is not targeted. Yeah, but if he's targeted in the red zone and he's catching touchdowns, there's an opportunity in the good matchups. And right now, as I mentioned, Kmet has good matchups the rest of the season.
Well, Linda and I got an argument over 80 targets. He's on pace for sub 50 targets right now. Yeah. So for my buy low, sell high, it's 2 guys in the same division, same position. I'm buying DeAndre Swift. Health is obviously an issue, but I feel like his current manager has to be frustrated, and they have him heavily involved in the passing game, and that's where you want to see his role expand. They've made it very clear they're limiting him now. He's going to get better. I am selling, if I can, David Montgomery. And this is from an asshole who just bought him in a league not too long ago. But I am selling him. He is the third best runner on his own team. Justin Fields, Khalil Herbert, and he may be fourth now because Chase Claypool is a very efficient runner when they decide to use him that way. He's at 3.7 yards per carry, but probably far worse, 2 targets per game and only 2 total touchdowns in 8 games. You need to hope you can sell his name to a running back needy team right now, but I am moving on from David Montgomery as quickly as possible. Even with a relatively easy schedule, he's going to have some good games moving forward, but not enough that you want to own him. Josh, I don't want to cut any segments off, but I'm going to cut off my waivers because I'm going to be perfectly honest. The deep waivers were absolute shit this week. Go look at wide receivers.
Agreed.
You might be able to find something out there. You're going to cut some bad quarterbacks. You should probably be cutting Breece Hall. I don't think 44% of people are playing their dynasty leagues on ESPN, so I don't know why he's rostered in that many leagues. Hunter Renfro's not worth it at 56% rostership. Elijah Moore at 40% rostership. And then I talked about Caleb Huntley. This is C-Patch's job now. So Josh, I'm going to let you end the show with chill the fuck out because that's what this show is all about. And you have one quarterback on here. And I think we can probably throw Justin Herbert into the same exact category, but talk to the people about why they need to chill the fuck out on Josh Allen before we wrap.
So remember when Peyton Manning used to go against the Patriots and just like absolutely used to suck, even though Peyton Manning was like the god at quarterback? Yeah, I think Robert Saleh just has Josh Allen's number, and that's okay. But you know what? He scored 2 rushing touchdowns and was QB4 on the week.
Do you know Joe Burrow's never beaten the Browns?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. Some teams just have a quarterback's number. Right now, the Jets have Josh Allen's number on defense, and this is a very talented Jets defense. Let's not sleep on this. So pump the brakes a little if you're worried about Josh Allen. I know there was the elbow issue as well. I'm not panicking yet. Just let's calm the fuck down on Josh Allen.
Yep. Guys, I'm going to end the show with that. Calm the fuck out on Josh Allen. Calm the fuck out on Justin Herbert. It was a bad week, and he has no wide receivers. Sorry to cut the show off so quickly, but I have to go pick my son up from school. But as I mentioned before, we are live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, and then again every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. The Saturday show is strictly devoted to your questions. So if we didn't get to a question today, but I think we got to all of them, or if you have more, you can always hit us up on Twitter. We're on all the socials at Club Fantasy FFL. Always remember that defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy, and my special tagline for this show, backup running backs will always be more efficient than the starters. Have a good